Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to this week's Local Marketing Institute Q&A session here. I am very excited today, not only to be joined by my good friends Jason Brown and Ben Fisher, but also by SEO legend Mark Traphagen. So, gentlemen, welcome to today's session. Good to see you.
Happy Friday.
Thanks for the nice welcome.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Actually, Jason and I are excited about the next couple of days. We're supposed to get anywhere from 2 to 3 feet of snow here in Colorado over the next 2 days. Mountains are going to get 4 to 5 feet, so it's crazy, but that's winter in Colorado for you.
Well, we'll be in the 70s here in North Carolina. We'll be thinking of you.
Yeah, we'll be in the 80s in Phoenix, so my condolences.
Oh, I'm incredibly jealous of both of you right now. Although, Ben, I'll talk to you around August.
This is why I have a man cave.
Hey, before we get started today, I want to go through a little bit of housekeeping here. Just some contact info. Mark is a fantastic resource. He's got a great business out there too with SEO Clarity. If you do want to get a hold of Mark, you can reach him. You can find him at seoclarity.net and at Mark Traphagen on Twitter. For Ben, you can reach him at steadydemand.com and at The Social Dude on Twitter. And for Jason, you can find him at reviewfraud.org and at Kaiser Holiday on Twitter. Guys, next week's session, I want to find out the history behind both of those Twitter handles. For me,
not next week.
There is no next week.
Oh, there is. There will be one if you want to do one. So we'll talk about that. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk. We'll reach me at Local Marketing Institute. And speaking of, go out to localmarketinginstitute.com. If you're not already subscribed to our email newsletter, sign up. It's right there at the top of the homepage. That's how you get the invitations to these sessions and a lot of other things, some fun stuff coming out here in the next couple of weeks. Also, subscribe to our podcast. If you can't make these live sessions, listen to it on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever. Again, you can find the links to that at our website, localmarketinginstitute.com. And then finally, if you're not part of our Facebook group yet, come on out and join it. We got over 1,500 members out there. Local Marketing Institute Connect. The link is on our website as well. And again, we're very restrictive as to kind of who we let in and don't. We don't like a lot of spam. It's just a very positive, supportive forum out there for local business owners and agency folks as like. So come on out and join us. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce to you guys Mark Traphagen. Mark is with SEO Clarity, and Mark's really well known in the SEO space. Mark, I'm just going to turn it over to you and say, what are you seeing right now happening in the SEO space? What's going on? What's got your attention right now? I'm just curious to know.
Well, thanks, Eric, and thanks for the very warm welcome. And this is a great way to trip into the weekend here with all of you. Well, so many things. There's always something going on, which is what I love about this business. I think we all love about it, and it also causes some of us to look like me with much less hair. But there's any number of developments. Just to give people a little context, again, I'm with SEO Clarity, which is a enterprise level software platform for SEO. But my finger on the pulse of all things going on in search engine optimization. Been in the industry for close to 15 years now. Worked both in agencies and in-house. So now I'm in-house VP of Product Marketing and Training for SEO Clarity. But part of my job is for our in-house, for our own people, and for our clients is kind of one of the
Hey, Mark, I think we lost your connection there for a second. So we just lost a couple of seconds. You mind just kind of recapping where you said you were at SEO Clarity, and we lost you after that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. This is totally my fault. I need to tape my hands down when I'm on this. I tend to reach over and start fidgeting with the USB connection for my microphone. I do this all the time. So bad hand. I will stop, put it under my thigh. So yeah, with SEO Clarity, we're an enterprise level SEO software platform, but we get a good view across a broad range of businesses globally of what's going on, what they're experiencing, as well as what our huge database shows. And then I was just mentioning that I have 15 years experience in digital marketing myself, most of those spent in organic search optimization. but I've touched in the worlds of, PPC, Facebook ads, social media, kind of had to wear all those hats at different times. So just jumping into something, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but something that we are observing and keeping a constant eye on is the never-ending changes in the search landscape, the actual SERP or search engine result page landscape. And just as I know, a lot of you are focused on the local market, and certainly you see, over the years and even over the months and sometimes over the days, how much Google will change, what shows up in the map pack and how expansive it is, how big, how little it is, how many results are in it, what specific things are shown for local businesses. That extends out into the whole world of Google. And search has become, best phrase I can come up with it is much more visual in the last few years. And I don't mean necessarily by that just more images and videos, although there's been more of that. What I mean more is that we've gone from that very simple picture that we all used to have of the 10 blue links with 2 lines of description underneath them going down the first page to a cavalcade of features and look at this and signposts and all kinds of things, featured snippets, taking parts out of a website and images. People also ask, I think we're going to talk about that kind of thing later. Hundreds. In fact, we track in our database currently something like over 1,800 different individual search features. When I say a search feature, this is any little thing that's different from that, again, that traditional, blue link with the 2-line description. So some of them are big things like a featured snippet or an answer box. Certainly ads are a search feature. Down there below that ad, and what you're looking at right now, we see a featured snippet. So this is where Google extracts a little part from a website and an image. And the image may not even be from the same site sometimes, much to our frustration. And pull that out as a feature at the top of the page. So that's a big one that takes up a lot of space. Some of them are as tiny as things like review stars or site links or just little things that add to the feature. So you're not, depending on the result that you're in, you're not going to see just 2 lines of text sometimes anymore. We're starting to see the first evidence, by the way, for something Google talked about back in November or October, November, called passages indexing. Which is where they're pulling, and be able to index and rank a page for an individual piece of content, micro piece of content on that page that's highly relevant to the query, even if the rest of the page isn't really about that or not centered on that topic.
I've seen it. Isn't that where they have? Isn't it where they had like the little yellow highlight when you click through?
No, that's something different. That's from featured snippets now. So,
okay.
And the name, what they call that is blanking on me at the moment, but it is now the case where a lot of times when you click the actual result for a featured snippet, it jumps down the page, hyper jumps down to that location of where that little snippet of content is and highlights it. Passages doesn't do that. In fact, Passages doesn't look any different on the page, but where we're noticing it or how we can detect it is we see the meta description change from something generic. First of all, it's often like stands out if there's a title just on the page you're going down. Let's say that we're searching for how to paint fences, and pretty much all the content going down the page, or most of it, is exactly the title is not supposed to how to paint a fence, the best way to paint fences, things like that. And then all of a sudden, there in the middle of that, there's one that has a title something like applying paint on a corrugated surface. And you say like, that doesn't sound like the keyword that I searched for, but you look at the,
so I think
if you, so we're seeing product listings.
Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I just haven't seen it here yet.
Yeah. I don't know if there's one specifically for there's a featured snippet, but go down a little bit because we've seen one for this query before, which is why I mentioned it. Let's see if I can spot it here in the meta description. The meta description is that text underneath the link.
Mm-hmm. Painting the fence. That's okay. I've seen, like you said, there's 1,800 different results, and they're testing it all the time.
Yeah, let's go back to the big picture. So, what does that mean? That means that what we're paying attention to at SEO Clarity for our clients is not so much the rankings anymore, traditional rankings. still matter, something that we track. We offer that. You can track that on our platform. When I mean traditional rankings, it's, we think of like, well, I'm third, means I'm the third result down the page. And that used to be super important in the early days of organic search, because it's still true. The further down the page, the less clicks that you're going to get in most cases, fewer clicks. So, but everybody was kind of equally spaced. So you could kind of predict like, okay, if we're fourth down the page, that's going to be, X percentage on the average less than number one. That's all thrown out the window now, because the kind of results we were just looking at take up vertical space on the page. So you can be let's say the number 2 result, which is a pretty good place to be. But depending on the query, you might be pushed so far down the page, and especially on mobile, on a phone, that you aren't even seen. So we're measuring now something we call visibility share within our platform. And we're switching a lot of our clients over to looking at this as the primary way they look at how they're performing in organic search. The more generic, if you're not using our platform, you don't have visibility share, the more generic way to apply this is you need to be looking at the search results themselves. So for the keywords that matter to you, for the searches, the organic searches that matter for you, every once in a while, just do a search and look and see how the landscape is changing. You might have a simple ranking tool that's telling you like, we're number 1. Yay. You look at what number 1 means now, and there might be so many things above you. Somebody has to physically scroll to find you. So it's just, that's one of the things that we're tracking and are keeping aware of. That's constantly changing.
I think that's huge, Mark, because when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, actually, but I think what you just brought on here, visibility share versus rank, because that factors in everything, especially for a local business. It factors in ads, it factors in local service ads, it factors in Google My Business, it factors in website links, it factors in featured snippets, it factors in videos, right? It factors in everything.
It actually becomes, what we're saying to our clients is that, by the way, taking advantage of certain things like schema development, structured data, which can result in what we call rich results. So a rich result is when Google kind of rewards you with, again, instead of just the blue link and the 2 lines of description, you might get other features that are included that make your listing in Google stand out more and actually make it bigger. They take up space. And this is actually a competitive strategy now. Like if you can get listings that are richer and have more search features in them, and you're relatively high on the page, you are pushing down the competition now, not just into a lower ranking position, but you're physically pushing them further down the page with your high featured result. So it's a different way of thinking optimizing. You're not just optimizing to rank for a position, but you're also optimizing to be more visible. And this is why we call it visibility share, and for your competition to be less visible, of course.
Mark, Derek in the chat brought up a really good point here. He's talking about they're trying to educate their clients on the same thing that you're talking about. I had an interesting question related to this. When you're measuring, certainly visibility share is one measurement, but for a business, should they be measuring that more by engagement or website traffic? So does it really boil down to that? The real metric is, okay, forget all the rankings, but are you increasing the number of people that are coming to your website? Are you increasing the number of people who are calling your phone number? Are you increasing the number of people who are coming to your store? Is that the real metric that we should be measuring on?
I mean, they always teach you fundamentally for any goal in life, not just SEO, like what do you want to achieve? What's your end result? And then set your goal in accordance with that, right? I mean, most of us are doing SEO or doing local marketing or whatever it is, because we want more money. We want a bigger business. We want more customers. That's traffic. So, I mean, that's a fundamental reason to be paying more attention to traffic overall than things like rankings. However, it all kind of works together. So, traffic should be your frontline consideration. And again, I'm coming from the world of organic search. So I'm going to be concerned with, what segmenting in my analytics, what traffic is coming specifically from organic search, and then monitoring that traffic. And if the traffic goes up or down, then you look a little deeper to figure out why is that happening. Now, one of the most simple reasons, again, in the old days, still can be the reason, but the simplistic reason is your ranking went down. You lost ranking because the fewer, we said earlier, further down the page, fewer clicks you get, less traffic you get. But now there's so many other things that could be coming into play. So this is one of them that you should, turn around, go look at the search results. Is there something new in there? Are there new features? Or is the competition getting into a featured snippet or whatever, or are you using more structured data to get a richer result and pushing us further down the page? So we may not have changed ranking position, but all of a sudden we've lost traffic because of that one factor. So I think that's the main takeaway is look more, look first at what's happening with your traffic, but then, examine things like ranking, position on the page, search features on the page, all these things. Also, if you see your traffic going up, but nothing else has changed fundamentally, good news, you're probably ranking for more queries, which can be another objective, right? Not just ranking. Sometimes people focus too much. Here's my list of 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, depending on the size of your business, keywords that matter to me, and I'm rank tracking those, and that's all I'm looking at. But these days, because Google is getting better and better at processing content and saying, like, we mentioned passages earlier. That's just one example of where they're saying, like, this is a piece of content that we might not have ranked for this set of queries over here before, but now it could be helpful to those people, so we will. So that's concentration in constantly improving and broadening out your content on your site.
Makes a lot of sense. So again, looking at the overall visibility, the 1,800 different searches that are out there, as a company either trying to rank nationally, which is what you work with a lot, or internationally, or a local business, what would you recommend as the major steps then to trying to gain more visibility, other than, hey, buy the ads? And claim and optimize your Google My Business listing, but on your website, what are the key things that you would counsel a company to do to try to gain greater visibility in search results?
Yeah, well, you can think about it on a simple level of thinking in two dimensions. Within any given query, of course, as we've already been talking about at length here, is the vertical dimension, like it's capturing position and visibility on the page, capturing real estate on the vertical page. But you also need to be thinking, as I talked about at the end there, on a horizontal axis, and that is broadening your reach and broadening your audience, your scope. So, we talked about some ways in terms of you can do some research and learn, like, how do I get into if a featured snippet showing for a query that's important to me? What can I improve about my content that might capture that featured snippet and jump me up there? What can I do to get more rich results? Should explore, again, structured data, schema. We have a, hi Sheila, I see you saying hi to me, so I'll say hi in chat, don't cheat there. So like we have a free tool, I'll promote that because it's free, out there called schema.dev is a site, very easy to remember. So schema.dev. It is a suite of free tools, Chrome plugins that you can install that will help you do the structured data that I'm talking about in a really, really simple way. We brought back a feature that Google used to have, but we made it more scalable, which is, there you go, which is where you can simply, with our schema tool, you can, which won the US Search Awards, by the way, last fall.
Nice.
As new software development. You can actually paint on the page. So you say, like, you get a schema for product title. You just paint the product title on the page, you highlight it, and literally our tool builds the valid schema for you. It tests it.
And this is a free tool people can use.
Absolutely free. Yep.
That's fantastic.
Sweet. We'd love to have people use it. So check that out. So that's an example of the kind of thing that you can do to build more helps to Google in your content that will cause them to want to give you richer results and capture more of that search landscape, capture people's eyeballs. So again, that's kind of the vertical. And then quickly on the horizontal axis, you're thinking about in terms of the content itself, your content on your site. Always be working to broaden that out, to expand it, to the comprehensive, what you cover, how well you cover the topics that are important that people will be searching for to find you. The more you do that, the more you're just increasing the level of possibility out there of what a search engine might rank you for. and the level of queries. So with things, again, like passages, just an example that we've used, there's many other things like it. You are giving opportunities for a piece of content. If there's lots of detail in that content and some meaty detail down deep in there, that Google might say like, well, we don't care about the rest of this page, but this page is highly relevant right now because it has this one paragraph has this fantastic answer to this question that people are asking. So, being that kind of answer. One more quick tactic in there that's something you can go out and explore, but something that we advocate, and we even build tools for doing this within our suite, goes by various names. We call it topic clustering. So thinking in terms of this is super, super helpful to search engines and to users in the end of thinking in terms of like, what are your big topics that you want to rank for, that you want to be known for, the things that, that are important to you. And then you build, anchor content around that. You build really super comprehensive, great content, centralized. And then you begin to do research. You think like, what are the questions that people are asking? What are the peripheral issues to that? What are the things that relate to that? All the things that people would want to know around that. And you build other pieces of content, maybe smaller, that link into that central hub content. That's the basic concept of it. But what that does for a search engine is it helps them really understand at a deeper level and a broader level what's important to your site, what you're about, what you cover, and therefore in the end potentially rank you for a lot more diverse set of queries than you might have otherwise. So that's one strategy that we definitely advocate.
Fantastic. So you kind of brought up a little something here that I think I may want to, this was a question someone brought in earlier here, because you talked about trying to find related topics, related questions to a specific topic. We talked about this a little earlier because someone wrote in asking, well, what determines which questions show up in a Google search as people also ask? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that you had shared with, I'll bring up this real quickly, was that probably a good segue into talking about, let's talk about things like you find here, like related searches. You'll find on a Google search or a people also ask, and can people utilize that, Mark, to find other topics related to the core things that they do?
Yeah, this is like keyword research or topic research 101, right? If you don't, let's start at that level. Like, let's say that you don't have access to a sophisticated SEO tool like ours. Or maybe you have a very simple site. You don't need that level of sophistication. This is a great place to start. Just do searches on Google for the things that matter for you, for what you think people, or people are searching for you, your products, your services, your offerings for, and what you want to be known for. And then looking at things like this. So these two features that Eric just highlighted, people also asking related searches, each have a really great function in that. So let's go down to related searches first and start.
Searches, you got it.
Okay, cool. So related searches is simply Google showing it's just what it sounds like. It's just keywords. It's just phrases that people use that Google sees as having a high intent similarity or audience similarity to the query that you entered. By the way, that's a term that we use at SEO Clarity, and we just recently introduced in our Topic Explorer the ability to demonstrate that or show that intent similarity overlap. So if you're doing it at huge scale, talk to us. But here, just on a simple level, you can see it right here, right? You can see, so these are keywords that you might want to think about using. Then back
I thought it would be good is if we did say something like water. So I oftentimes see businesses doing, like, especially local businesses, just, oh, I'm a plumber, therefore I'm just going to look for plumbing.
Yes.
But you got to think about, what are all the things that your clients are looking you up for, like water heater repair, right?
That's
and then you
exactly
go to water heater repair, and this is where you could take these things, right?
Yeah, because you're seeing like, oh, there's other words that people use here. A classic example that I always love to use is, let's say you're a doctor's office. You're going to say like, we treat conjunctivitis. So, you're a doctor, so of course you think of conjunctivitis. Nobody in the real world searches for conjunctivitis. What do they search for?
Pink eye.
You know what that is? Pink eye, exactly, right.
I know because my daughters have had it.
Yeah, if you've had a kid that's had it, then you know the answer to that question. But a lot of people, sometimes we're blinded by our own expertise, right? So, you need to, this will, looking at the search results like this will break you out of that, show you other words. Yeah, you see, Google understands that. If you, Google understands that pink eye is conjunctive. Of course it does. But they're getting better and better in understanding it. We call the entities and the relationships between words that humans use and the many different ways that we describe things. So the things we're looking at in the search results can be clues to that for you. Like, oh, I should be using these words. Or I should have content, not just about conjunctivitis, but I should be talking about pink eye. And maybe there's some related congenital diseases or something that I should be talking about in relationship to that. So that's the first level of kind of like expanding your keyword universe and the words that you use. People also ask is more on the content side. So this is just like, this is so rich. It's like, I wonder what people ask when they are looking for things that we talk about or we do. Google's telling you now. You go right there.
But I'll show you this. So here's an example, Mark. This is the things you were talking about. Because this is a big thing here in Northern Colorado, and we have ash trees. So I don't know, is emerald ash borer in Colorado?
Is that a pest?
This is a featured snippet right here.
Yep.
But look at where it's coming from. This is a local tree service business.
Isn't that is absolutely smashing incredible. And I'm going to steal that example and save it because that's such a good example of like, forget all that you're hearing about domain authority and all these other things. They might matter to some extent like this. Like Google is getting better and better. They just want the best answer. At the end of the day, they don't care if it's coming from, where it's coming from. So this local person has done a fantastic job of providing informative, on-point content that answers the user query, and they got the top featured spot in Google.
There's one ad, and boom, they're there in like the position 0.
Yeah, and there's nobody else until you scroll, right? Yeah,
they've even
click on that
beat
first.
out,
people also ask.
Colorado State. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, click on that the first one for the people also ask. Wonder if that's them as well.
No, that's Colorado State.
Okay.
Because that's talking about the more in Denver and how to get there. But anyway, I saw this example, and when you brought it up, Mark, I'm like, this is a perfect example.
It really, really is, and that's that should be encouraging to people. Like that's a little person in our world who's killing it in that, and it's all by content. I'll bet you like there's not incredible links to that page necessarily. There's not, all this other stuff that we used to think it's still, I don't want to discount like that. Like that's all still important, but you can win by just having the best content these days.
Well, and it's probably also recognizing that I'm searching from here in Northern Colorado. This is a business here in Northern Colorado. So Google's putting a lot of these pieces together to try to get what it thinks is the best search result, to your point.
So it'd be, I'll try to remember this search and do it later because it would be interesting to see that. Like I may not get that same result, but sometimes you do. Like I have totally seen small blogs. I've seen, little local sites and things like that for a generic question like this. It's not a transactional question. I'm not looking to, buy something from somebody with that question, right? At least at this point in the stage. If some little site has the best answer, it can pop up nationally. That can certainly happen. The people just coming back to go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just coming back to the people also ask for a moment. So, again, my just quick suggestion with that is like, use that as a first level mine for, what do I write, what do I write about next? So this person had that page, that answered that question, but, there's all kinds of related things that they could write about because these are again drawn from actual questions that people have asked, literally that people have asked. So you couldn't ask for a better. It's the ultimate crowdsourcing.
Mark, how would you relate this people also ask or the related searches to something like a Google Trends, which is also a free tool? Yeah.
Different, some relevance, different purpose. I mean, Google Trends is a time machine, right? So you're saying like, instead of looking at a topic based on, what's Google looking at or what's people interested in right now, it gives you an idea of, is this a topic that's growing in interest? Not so, without getting too technical, the graph that you're seeing when you look at Google Trends is not not search volume necessarily. It's somewhat might correlate to that, but it's a complex formula that Google uses that you could basically translate as the level of interest relative to the past.
Got it.
So it's
On that topic, though, Mark, what do you think about tools like Answer the Internet, Keywords Anywhere, or even using, say, Google Ad Planner in incognito mode to really dial into other related types of searches?
Yeah, I mean, all of those can be good tools. We have our own. We do that. We go through literally billions of web pages every month, digging in, not just looking at the search results themselves, but actually going into the top 10 results, going down into the content, and we dredge up the questions and answers that are in those things from the actual content to put into our Content Fusion suggestion tool, so that when you're working on a piece of content, you can actually see this is in top 10 ranking content. These are the questions that were getting answered and the kind of things that were in the content. So all of those kinds of tools are great for giving you, because it's, again, the wisdom of the crowds. We talk about that SEO clarity all the time, the value of that. The unknown unknowns are the things that kill us. We know what we know. We know a little bit of what we don't know, but there's a whole lot out there that we're just blind to. We don't know. And that's what these tools and these approaches tell us about. There's a whole, no matter how well you've done with your content and your optimization, there's always going to be a reach of people out there who are looking in ways that you would not think of just out of your own brainstorming. So that's what we're trying to do, is we're going to break out of our own heads and get into what actually is going on out there.
Nice. You guys want to jump into some Q&A?
Let's do it.
Got some good stuff coming in here. I think, though, before we wanted to jump in here real quick, there's a couple of quick updates that Jason and Ben, I know you guys wanted to bring to the forefront. Jason, you had encountered something this week where Google was showing Street View for service area businesses. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, so Tricia had tweeted earlier today that she was noticing with the map apps on Android that it was showing Street View for SABs, which are businesses where their addresses are clearly showing. And so I was able to get a few people to do some tests. And so we looked at Amy Toman's listing, and sure enough, Street View was showing her private residence. And then Tricia says, when you go and flag the Street View, it's showing the actual address for that location. So I've already kicked it up to Google, because that's a privacy risk for a lot of people that are hiding their business because they're not supposed to be showing their address.
So something just to be aware of, not something a business can do anything about at this point. Just be aware of it. Move on.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Okay. Gotcha. And then Ben, you had something about the fact that Google Posts are having some problems as well right now.
Yeah, we've been seeing this actually for now almost the past week. And I've been getting reports probably almost daily now, actually, a couple times a day, easily from our clients. And we're seeing it in the forums too. But posts are basically getting rejected again. The good news is that GMB's on top of it. We met with GMB this morning about this and brought it up. And so they're working on it, and posts should be backfilled. So we don't know if they're going to be able to do duplicates or not, but I would say if they're getting rejected for you, to just relax.
Yeah. Okay. So again, another situation where it's broken. Google knows about it. They're working on it. Nothing that businesses can really do right now. Okay.
No,
it's a dumpster fire.
I was going to bring this up, but I'll go ahead and bring it up anyway. We had this. This is kind of describes GMB right now, according to a lot of people out there. It's a bit of a dumpster fire. Jason, and I guess along the dumpster fire lines, you had also talked about the fact that we're having some problems with people replying to reviews or finding old reviews.
Yeah, so there's this new issue that's just been popping its ugly head, and we've flagged it with Google. But people are saying in the forum that they get an email alert that they have a review. They go to click on it. It says reviews not found. People are also saying that they're having an issue replying to reviews all of a sudden as well. So I mean, it's hard to say what the issues is, other than, GMB is just the dumpster fire. And I guess I'm gonna have to go change my name back on Twitter from I clicked a button or armchair warrior, whatever I am, to dumpster fire again, because it's dumpster fire season.
Got it. Mark, this might be a great question for you. Janelle writes in, regarding backlinks, Are links from smaller blogger websites bad backlinks back to my own site? I've noticed that like the domain ratings for some of these blogger websites score less than 20 on average. Should I deny them? Should I allow them? Is it make a big deal? What's your take?
Well, I think we had to define bad links, first of all, right? So, I mean, a truly bad link is a link that might potentially do some harm to your site. And when we talk about harm, that would be in terms of a Google penalty, where Google examines your backlinks and there's a certain pattern to them that makes them highly suspect that they've been gamed. There's some way that they've been, it's an unnatural pattern, as they would call it. And so they might throttle or even, in extreme cases, take away all of your rankings in that sort of situation. So that's the thing that you're ultimately concerned about. It's relatively rare, but it can happen. You want to monitor for that. Beyond that, it's a value judgment. It's just a matter of the strength. So those, in and of itself, a link from a small site or a site that doesn't have a lot of authority. A page, most important thing is whether the page has authority, which means, are there significant links pouring into that page, is not going to hurt you. So don't be afraid of it. It may just not help you all that much. But the link, I'm always a little cautious about these kind of approaches to things. Other than that, yeah, you should be monitoring it. If you seem to be getting this influx of, first of all, if you're actively paying for links to your site, then you should always be monitoring because, you're living on the edge, and that's, what you're doing.
Don't pay for backlinks if you can help it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But aside from that, something you take a look at, your link profile every once in a while, you just try to look like all of a sudden there's like this influx of, a huge number of links from really low quality or no name sites or sites that are, totally irrelevant to yours. Like the links just don't make sense. You're getting a few of those. Everybody gets a few of those. Don't worry about them. You're getting a lot of them. Then, it's time to look into things like Google's disavowal tool, things like that, just preemptively. In most cases, not a big concern. The thing with links is, other than that, it's just striving to earn the best ones that you can, having content that's worthy, that other people want to reference it, that it says things in ways. I think that local site about the pine borer or whatever that thing is, earlier is a great example of that. If Google's featuring that as like a really super example like that, other places I'll bet that are, wanting to inform people on that topic are going to link there naturally. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, there's many I'll end that question with, it's always complicated in SEO. It always depends, but there are many, many factors that go into link besides just domain authority. In fact, we don't, SEO Clarity, we don't have a domain authority score. That's by intent, because we think it gets overblown, it gets overused and overestimated, and sometimes used for the wrong purposes. And it's not primarily the way that Google looks. Google looks at a page-to-page basis. Now there are, when I hasten to say, we know that there are factors, site trust factors, overall factors, things like this that can influence. But by far the most important thing when we come to talking about link value is the value of the individual page. And that's in two areas. The authority is, again, are there good links and relevant links flowing into that page? And is the page itself good, relevant content that's relevant to your page that it's linking to? Those, I think, are the most fundamental things that Google is looking for. So I guess the answer to my question is don't sweat it. If a small blog is linking to your site,
right.
God bless them. Yep. Don't sweat it.
There you go. So, but there was a follow-up question, which I thought was a good one, because I think most businesses and frankly, a lot of agencies I know don't know this. How do you find who's linking to your site, and how do you identify if it's a good link or a bad link?
Yeah, fundamentally, I'm sure there's some more generic ways to do it that I'm just not as familiar, because I'm too out of that. Like I've been using the tools and I had access to the tools for too long, so you get lazy with.
You get a little spoiled.
There's certainly a lot of tools out there that can do backlink analysis for you. We at SEO Clarity, we think it's such an important job. Like we outsource that. That's one of the few things that we outsource. We're very proud of the outsourcing source that we use. It's Majestic. So we have an agreement, a partnership with Majestic, that they provide all of our backlink data. So within our within our platform, you can go in and you can see your backlink profile. You can get some idea of the quality of the links, their authority, all those kinds of things. There's multiple tools out there. There's some, simpler, even some free tools. I'm sure that will help you do that. There's probably some more. Somebody mentioned SpyFu. It's in there in our internal chat. Any of the tools that are out there, any of the SEO tools that deal with backlinks at all are going to help you with that. And then fundamentally Search Console, right? You can always go. Search Console is limited in the amount of data that it shows you, but especially if you're a smaller site, that's a great resource because that's straight from Google's mouth. That's the link profile they're seeing to your site. So, it's probably the best free source on a small basis. You can't use Google Search Console for that at scale, but for a lot of people, that would probably suffice.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one real quick thing, Jace, and that is that, just to go back to domain authority really quick. Even John Mueller has come out and specifically stated that they do not care, they do not track, they do not look at domain authority. Domain authority was basically invented, quote unquote, by Moz as a metric. So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Jace.
If you want to, Dr. Pete's a good friend of mine. Russ Jones, who's a good friend of mine. I've learned SEO at Russ Jones' knee, almost literally. He's not that much taller than me, but these are guys who are involved with that, and I know that they're still maintaining that DA has some value, and they are working very, very hard right now at building up some more relevant correlations to it, trying to help it match up with the things where even John Mueller has said that there are things that they do look at the domain level. We don't know all exactly what those are. I know the people at Moz are doing a lot of research. God bless them. They're invested in that. I hope that that has some benefit. Our clients do just fine without it, and I think better without it because it gets them focused on the things that really matter on the page basis.
There you go.
Yeah. And the thing I was going to say real quick, was that you've got to take all these tools with like a grain of salt, especially when you're looking at, link toxicity scores, and like everybody, they're just trying to come up with like the best educated guess to whether or not they think that that's a quality or low quality link. The best thing to do, honestly, is just go look at that site that you're getting a backlink from and look at their profile. Is it looking like it's just a bunch of guest posts and people are buying links in there? Does it say, pay X amount of dollars to get featured on here? Then those are going to be things you're going to,
I said that might be a clue.
Yeah, or are they trying to, is it, somebody that's, is it links off of, Forbes, off of Forbes, because, there's a Forbes council and, those links usually get discredited by Google because they know that, it's a pay to play system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of media sites, local media sites, national media sites, where it's called sponsored content. And it's a completely legitimate, and usually they have editorial standards on them, but it is a pay-to-play system. And Google knows these, and oftentimes they'll discount those links on there. This brought up an interesting side note question. I'm curious to get the thoughts from all three of you guys, but especially you, Mark. So someone asked a question, does this mean PageRank is dead?
Yes and no. Again, the answer to every SEO question.
We might want to tell some of the people watching what PageRank is.
Yeah, and that's going to be where you're going to start because what do you mean by PageRank? Because there's a lot of different ways to define that. Fundamentally, I try to be as brief as possible in this, but fundamentally, PageRank is the original formula that Larry Page and Sergey Brin came up with in Stanford. Well, they worked on the backs of others, but they. The fundamental algorithmic ranking scheme based on link authority that they came up with. So it was a mathematical formula for saying, if there's a set of documents and they link with each other in certain ways, we can measure that and count those as weighted votes and determine, the authority of a page based on that. So it's kind of like, it's on the model of in the scientific world of citations. The more citations a scientific paper has, the more authoritative it is. So that's fundamentally what PageRank is and was. Then there was the public PageRank, which was around for a number of years, where Google put out this number. It was a 1 to 10 scale, which is not how their PageRank algorithm works, but it was a kind of approximation thing of score of like this page, relative, like because of the link profile, this page, the authority profile, this is a 6 and this one's an 8, like that.
And if I remember, it was logarithmic, right?
Yeah, and it was logarithmic too, right? Yeah, it got harder to go from say 7 to 8 than it was to go from 4 to 5. But anyway, it was just an approximational scale, and it showed up in a Google toolbar, and it proved to be more harmful than it was good, I think, in the end, because again, 90% of the usage of it or more was probably for what we were just talking about. It was like assessing for paid, if you want, I can charge more for links from my page because I have a page rank score of 9, you have one of 6. And also Google just got tired of maintaining it. So they, a number of years ago, they gave up on that. So there is no public PageRank now. So the ultimate answer is what PageRank is today. We know multiple times Googlers have told us it's still in there, deep down inside, the original PageRank algorithm, or I shouldn't say the original, but whatever the latest version of that is still fundamental to the engine, but there's so much else that they've built out since then around it that it's not the only thing. So I hope that answers the question, but it's kind of the coverage of it.
I thought it was great. Ben, Jason, any other thoughts on that?
My only thought on that is, and Mark, I'd love to know we're both friends with David Ameland, so we're a lot with semantic search and strings to things and entities, and I remember that a long time ago there was this interview that Brian and Sergey did, where they were talking about links as the leading ranking factor. That's what Larry wanted, right? And then basically Sergey said, no, it's about things. It's about entity. Basically, he was talking about entities, and they made a 10-year bet. And I think the interesting thing is that we've seen things kind of progress so much with entity association, neural matching, as they call it last year, right? Same thing. But, how that's going to actually impact things moving forward, because we're going to start to lose these kind of measuring type of tools as things get more frayed from how we see it. It's much more clarity for Google, though.
Yeah, but it also kind of takes us back to what we talked about in the very beginning of this webcast, and that is, concentrating less on things like the traditional ranking, stuff like that, and just more on, serving the user. We get tired of it in the SEO world. We get cynical of it because Google said it for years, and we hate the answer. It's like, just create the best possible site with the best possible content and user experience, and then we're happy and said, yeah. What does that mean? It's, vague, but it's becoming more and more true, the case, that, Google wants to leapfrog over those old things that we SEOs can game. We understand. You talk about link profiles and things like that. Like, we can analyze that all the day it comes home, and try all kinds of scoring schemes and things like that to game that and juice that up. Right? That's easy to do relatively. But if Google can leapfrog over that and say, like, look, we're just going to build something that's a brain that can go out and say, like, oh, I reckon that answer is better than that answer. I don't care how many links it has. I don't care whose site it's on, blah, blah, blah. That's the best answer. That's what we're going to serve to our users. So I don't think we're entirely there yet, but it's moving that way so rapidly that your concentration really ought to be on, I think, you can boil it down to 2 things for organic SEO. I think, table stakes, which is having a technically good site, making sure your site is clean and good code and, as fast as you can make it, and, all the links work, and it's, navigable both to humans and to the crawl bots. So, that's just table stakes. That's getting in the game. Then beyond that, just serving your audience, researching your audience, figuring out, what are they searching for? What do they want to know? What do they need to know? What gives them the best assurance about buying or from us or doing business with us, et cetera, and building your site, building your content around that as good as you can. I mean, that's the hard day in and day out work that I think is going to win in the long run.
Agreed. Makes sense. Kind of back to your table stakes for a second. I want to do a real quick follow-up on something that we addressed here in this broadcast a couple of weeks ago. So, guys, we had talked about something called Nitro Pack. if you remember Nitro Pack, Nitro Pack was a WordPress plugin that is designed to speed up websites. And if you look at things like Google's Page Speed Insights, on Local Marketing Institute, for example, on desktop, we used to be a 73, we used to be a 50 something on mobile. Well, by just installing Nitro Pack, it brought us up to a 95, optimization score, according to Google Page Speed Insights, and a 76 on mobile. So I know a couple of other prominent SEOs out there have also been talking about this. So I want to just follow an update. We had a lot of controversy. People were saying, hey, all this tool does is fool the page checkers. That's all it does. It's not actually doing anything. It's just fooling the page checkers. So we did some research on this, and I actually was able to, I contacted Nitro Pack, and they actually pointed me to this response from Nitro Pack's president on a thread out there. And he actually came back and said, hey, I'll skip down to the most part thing here. What Nitro Pack is doing is it's preloading various assets, like all the style information, all the fonts, the JavaScript, into a separate thread that loads independently of the actual page. That's why he said it could look like, the page tools are not being loaded and fully. But bottom line, it's just, he said they're not fooling it. They're just loading it in a separate thread. That's why it's coming through, and you can double check that. So from a practical standpoint, I can tell you what I've seen, because I've worked this with several different sites, including our own site. When we have Nitro Pack on, our scores here and in GT metrics and in other tools does go way up. Practically speaking, it actually does improve the experience. It is faster. However, there are some downsides as well with this. One, it doesn't address all the issues, all the core issues with that may be there with, especially cumulative layout shift, where the page may shift around a little bit. It doesn't always address those. It's also, if you have different content that displays for logged in versus logged out users, won't work. It breaks it. And then the other thing is, when we had it here, you can see it, but we do see occasionally when the page loads, there's a little bit of a flicker. And that makes sense, because the page is loading, and then that other thread with all the CSS and the JavaScript and all that, it then loads and it merges together on your computer. So there's sometimes some quick shifts that may happen. Frankly, we did some other testing. If you're running a really well optimized, we didn't test the other systems, but if you're running a well optimized WordPress site with a good, clean theme, and you don't have all kinds of plugins weighing it down, and you're on good hosting, right? I always say use good hosting. You don't print your marketing materials on toilet paper. Don't use crappy hosting. We've seen great page speed insights scores without having to use this kind of a plugin. So just want to follow up with this, that it is not fooling the tools. It's just because of the way it's doing things may look different. It is a paid thing, though. You have to pay for it, just to let you guys know. So just want to do that quick follow up. Mark, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was throwing a couple quick things here. So if people may have heard about this coming up, that Google has cared about page speed for a number of years now, and it's been somewhat of a ranking factor for a while. That's not new. What's new is this idea of core web vitals. So back in the fall, they announced there's these 3 metrics, you see them there, that we've decided, like, these are the ones that matter for the experience of the user. It's not just being fast, but are they having a good experience? Like, do things load? Like you mentioned, are things constantly shifting around? Are things popping up in front of you? How quickly can you get to the content that you came there to see? They're actually, these are they call them the core web vitals, because they're the metrics that measure how somebody has the fastest, best experience when they jump from Google search. So what they said is, starting in May, we're going to be activating this page experience update in the algorithm, which will use these and take these into consideration. And these will be the way that we will measure going forward what we call page speed. There's other things that factor into that, like mobile security, all mobile readiness, all kinds of things like that. But this is the main thing. here's the point. A couple things that they've told us, oh, by the way, Google always has these, like they make these announcements and then a month or two later, there's like, oh, did we mention this? By the way, a couple of those things. One is that they recently kind of just let out that there's 3 of these Core Web Vital metrics. And in order to get any kind of advantage or boost from this, you have to have all 3. You have to be good on all 3. So, if this tool is only boosting 1 or 2 of those, that's great. I mean, that's a first step. But if you're, second or third one is crappy, still, it's not going to give you that much of an advantage.
Well, I can tell you why my cumulative layout shift is bad, and it's something I'm addressing. If you bring it, see how it kind of flashed real quick?
Pardon?
I don't know if you noticed it, but it kind of flashed. It didn't,
Yes, I did.
the
I saw
fonts
that,
loaded.
yeah.
But one of the other things that we have is we have actually, still looks like it's loading in some background stuff. We have a little bar that pops up that then asks you to, hey, become an email subscriber.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're getting that's why we're failing the cumulative layout shift.
Okay.
So anyway, that was just a fascinating thing. And then I've heard that this starts being implemented again. Search Engine Journal reported that May 2021 is when this actually becomes a ranking signal.
However, they've told us like, don't, it's something you should be looking at and examining, but don't panic about it. One of the things they've told us, and this is very typical again for these kind of rollouts for them, they've said, look, first of all, this is not going to be a major factor. It's probably going to be Martin Split. I've been using this term for months, and I heard Martin Split from Google use it yesterday, is that it's kind of a tiebreaker. If there's 2 pages that are relatively equal, Google could show, they're never perfectly equal, but they're both highly relevant. They're good quality trusted sites, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the one has good CWV and the other one doesn't. They may give the nudge to that one, which makes sense, right? So it comes to play that. The other thing they've told us is that, look, even though we're starting this in May, it's going to roll out very slowly. We're not going to, just like they did with mobile first, we're not going to turn the switch one day and everybody who has crappy CWV is going to drop off the search results. It's like, we won't do that. That's just too big a shakeup. So it's going to start out slow. The effect of it's going to be slow and kind of pared back. And gradually, as people get used to it and people start using it more and paying more attention to it, they'll ramp it up over time. So those are some important things to know.
But it's something businesses should be aware of. Businesses should be asking their developers or their agency about this and saying, hey, I've heard about this. What's going on? What should we do? Like those pharmaceutical commercials. Ask your doctor about this.
Doctor, right? Yeah, about
Ask
CWV.
your developer about Core Web Vitals and how it can help your search performance today.
Ask if Core Web Vitals are right for you.
Exactly. I love that, Mark.
Well, I'm seeing an image of an older couple, sharp-looking older couple walking through a field of daisies right now.
Well, I want to do a photo shoot with Ben and Jason in 2 tubs side by side, holding hands, saying, "Ask your doctor if Core Web Vitals is right for you."
I will contribute to the expenses of that shoot.
Oh God!
All right, I'm in.
But seriously, ask your doctor if it's right for you, because it's, again, in the scheme of things, at SEO Clarity, we talk about taking an intensely practical approach to technical SEO. And that is the things, looking at everything you can do. There's always broken things on your site. There's always things that could be better, can be improved. Not only what needs to be improved, but what can you do? Like with the resources you have, fix the things you can fix first. If fixing this is going to be difficult and long and involved and you don't know what to do yet, don't make it the priority.
Makes
other
sense.
things like, if your H1 tags are all messed up or duplicated or whatever, like those fundamentals, take care of those. They're easier to take care of. And then work through this. So this is not something to push the panic button on, I would say, unless you're like way down in the red zone and everything. The other reason maybe to pay attention to this, and this is not a bad one, even though it's not strictly SEO. There's a reason why Google is measuring these 3 things. It's because they correlate so highly with how real people feel about your site. Like these are the things that piss people off when they come. We've all had that experience, especially on mobile. You go to a site and I'm trying to read the story I want to read, and it's jumping all over the page and there's things popping in and out and it's moving around. Like, your site's going to convert better. You're going to do better. You're going to get more visitors who stay and watch more things, et cetera, if you pay attention to these. So Ben knows this. I used to call it Google behavior modification. We kind of grumble like, oh, what's the latest thing Google wants to force us to do? But a lot of times the goals intersect, like they're forcing us to do something that's going to be good for us.
It's natural.
Yeah.
It's very natural. Yeah.
So if your doctor says CWV is good for you, take your CWV every day. It's going to.
And Mark is your doctor. Core Web Vitals are good for you. Well, on that note, Mark, I think we're going to have to call it a wrap here. We're getting to the end of the hour, but I want to thank you so much for joining us. This was a very, very fun session.
Oh, good.
Ben, Jason, as always, thank you. But Mark, really appreciate your time.
I had
Thank
so
you,
much
everybody.
fun. Like, just that kind of feeling you get where like we could talk for hours, obviously.
Exactly.
So, thanks so much for having me. And I'd be love to come back again if you wanted to have me.
Absolutely.
We'd be honored
Thanks,
to have
Mark.
you back. Gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend.
All right. Bye.
Bye all.